agribusiness value chain. Through the pandemic, we've seen that a lot of things have changed recently, and of course, new innovation came into the market. There are a lot of things affecting most of the region in terms of food security, but of course, how are the actors reacting to these changes, and of course, how are we innovating at this time? So before we move into that, I would really want everyone who has joined us now to please introduce themselves using the chat box. One thing we want to know where your name, where you are joining from, your organization. So please, you may do that in the next 1 to 2 minutes, and then I will actually give this session back to the moderator. So I will give us 1 to 2 minutes to please introduce ourselves at this time. Thank you. All right, great. I can see familiar faces, names. I can see from PFS. I can see from Ghana, Greenfield, Open Capital. You're welcome, everyone. All right, while we are doing that, just to keep our time, I'll move further. So like I mentioned, this is innovation in agribusiness value chain. And of course, this will be our speakers today, our facilitator. I will not do the introduction. I will give that to Vivian because she knows them better, and of course she knows herself better. Yeah, so she will do that when she takes over this. But I have few instructions to give. For questions, please use the ask box, the question box. I will have any question. And of course, there's no need to wait till the end of the session before you ask. As the session is going on, please drop your question. And of course, if there's a need for you to speak, please kindly raise your hand and get the attention of the facilitator at this time. At that time, we want it to be as engaging as possible. So you would be allowed to also probably share your perspective if there's a need. But one thing is, please do not unmute yourself if you're not asked to do so. So feel free to also chat with connect with other participants, which is one of the reasons for this session in the chat box. And of course, you can ask for maybe their contact emails and wherever you need to get yourself together. So please get yourself muted throughout the session. And if you need to speak, the facilitator will call upon you. And of course, try to also participate well in this session. So at this time, I will give it up to Vivian Maduekeh to actually take this on, introduce the facilitators, and of course, also start the session. Hi, Vivian.
All right, thank you so much, Joshua. And hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this session today. I will quickly share my screen. Joshua, if you can unshare. Okay. Just 1 second. Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen? Please confirm in the chat if you can see my screen. All right, thank you. So again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Today's session is on food security and nutrition and the innovation in the agribusiness sector. And for us, it's indeed a pleasure for us to be facilitating this session. And just quickly, The agenda today, to start with introductions, and then we'll look at some of the agri-food innovation learnings that we've been getting from our clients. As well, we'll also be sharing a case study from one of our clients in Ghana, and also from one of our partners, Root Capital. Root Capital is one of the partners that we work with as an organization, and she will be bringing, they will be bringing a perspective as an investor. And then we'll leave it open to a Q&A session just to understand for some of the intermediaries or perhaps the agribusinesses themselves who have joined the meeting. We also want to learn from you so that it's not just us talking to you, but also we are here to learn. It's a workshop, so we share our own learnings, and we also want to learn from those on the workshop today. Okay. So with me on this workshop today, I have my colleagues, Christian Dedzo and Kate Hyder. I am Vivian Maduekeh, and I am the Program Manager for Partners in Food Solutions in Nigeria. I'm going to describe more about our organization in the next slide. And my background is in food science and technology, and I work with a lot of the clients in Nigeria, food processing clients in Nigeria, helping them with technical implementation from packaging to process engineering to food safety. And it's indeed a pleasure for me to be facilitating the session today. So I'll turn it over to my colleague, Christian Dedzo, who is the West African Regional Director for Partners in Food Solutions. And then Kate can also introduce herself. Christian?
Thank you, Vivian. Hi, everyone. My name is Christian Dedzo. I represent Partners in Food Solutions in West Africa. I'm based in Accra, Ghana. Just like my colleague Vivian, my background is in food science and technology. And I also help our clients in Ghana here to implement the technical assistance that they receive from our organization, Partners in Food Solutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Christian. Kate?
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Kate Hyder. I'm the Director of Innovation with Root Capital, which is a financier and capacity builder of agricultural businesses. I'll introduce us further later. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya, and we work across West, East Africa, and also beyond that. So looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Kate. So it's indeed a pleasure, as I mentioned before, and it's interesting to see the array of members or people who have joined this meeting, and it's our goal that this webinar or workshop is going to be as informative to you as it is for us. So a little bit about Partners in Food Solutions for those who are not familiar with the work that we do. So Partners in Food Solutions is a non-profit with a mission to increase the competitiveness of food companies in Africa. And we're founded over a decade ago, and our headquarters is in Minneapolis, USA. And we currently are present in more than 10 African countries, of which Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal in West Africa is a part of. We also do a lot of work in Kenya. We have offices in Zambia, in Tanzania, in Uganda, in Rwanda. And a lot of the things we'll be sharing today are from my experience in West Africa, as well as the other countries we are currently present in. And Partners in Food Solutions, as the word is, partners, is made up of 7 partner food companies who came together to form the nonprofit. So if you look down here, these are some of our partner companies. We have General Mills. They are a renowned food processing company. Popular, they're known with their Cheerios brand, Nature Valley, Yoplait, Häagen-Dazs. For some of you who don't, who have experienced the products, Cargill is a food ingredient company. They supply wholesale ingredients to most, if not all, of the food companies, large food companies globally. We have DSM. DSM, they are well known for their vitamin premixes. Also, we have Beulah. Beulah, they are one of the largest food equipment companies globally. And also we have Hershey. Hershey, they are well known for their Reese peanut cup brand, as well as their Hershey chocolate spread. As well, we have Ardent Mills, one of the largest milling companies in North America. And then we have JM Smuckers. Now, these 7 partner companies, the staff in these companies volunteer their time and their expertise to work with food processing companies in Africa. And a lot of the technical assistance we provide to these companies are pro bono, so they are for free. And we've worked with more than 100 companies in Africa. And some of the technical assistance we provide to them, from innovation in product development, in packaging technology, with food safety and certification to help them access markets. We also work with them on marketing and business services, on equipment. And some of the learnings, as I mentioned, that we'll be sharing will be from our experiences working with these companies, not just as processors, but as also value chain actors and so, you know, people who source from primary producers. So as I said, it's a pleasure that we are facilitating the session today. And we hope this will be a great learning experience for you. So to get us started, why we are here today, I want us in the chat to just express, what does innovation in agribusiness mean to you? And why I want us to answer this is because this session is supposed to be a workshop, not us talking to you. We also want to learn from you. We want to make sure that this workshop is, you're getting what you came for, right? So please, if you can type in the chat box, what innovation in agribusiness means to you. Innovation is a word we are familiar with, we throw around, we use very often, but now in the context of West Africa, right, and Africa, what does innovation in agribusiness mean to you? So please, in the chat box, I just want to learn, because that will also instruct the way we discuss this session. Please feel free. And what do you hope to learn from the session? And what does agribusiness innovation mean to you? Anyone in the chat? Because as I said, we want to make sure that this session is as enriching as possible, so, and as interactive as possible. So what does innovation in agribusiness, what does it mean to you? So I see someone say innovation, new solutions to solving old problems. Interesting. Thank you, Ben. Anyone else? What does it mean to you? Agribusiness innovation, new ideas, ones coming from Africa, existing ideas, getting concepts to scale. Great. Creative solutions to challenges in agribusiness. Thank you so much. Yes, agribusiness means all of this to us. It means all of this to us, but I'm going to post some of the things when I tried, and most of the seminars I've been to on innovation in agribusiness, I try to create a word cloud of some of the words that are thrown around and some of the interesting ideas coming up. So from agribusiness innovation globally, you see, and also for a lot of people championing agribusiness innovation in Africa, a lot of really great things are going on. You know, you have artificial intelligence, use of drones, use of cultured meat, you see the word disruption come up, greenhouse, climate smart, all of those things are interesting and bear potential. But for a lot of us who have worked in West Africa, we know that before these things start scaling to give us the results that we are looking for, it's going to take some time, and we'll need to have some foundations before some of these things will make sense. We've seen a lot of people utilize hydroponics, but also we've seen people who are using drones. However, as I mentioned, that will not be the focus of the conversation today. So for us, innovation means adapting to the present and future in order to thrive, right? So you're innovating to exist, to solve the present problems, or if not problems, the present opportunities, but also you're looking ahead into the future to say, how can we make sure we're solving the future problems, the future challenges, we're taking the future opportunities in order to thrive. As we know, if you continue the way things are, you're likely not to grow, and your competitors will come in and take over your business. So for us, what is going to inform the workshop today is this definition: adapting to future and present needs. And as some of you mentioned, innovation doesn't have to be that new idea, right? It can be existing ideas from other clients that you integrate and work with. And also, innovation in agribusiness doesn't have to be an app. It doesn't have to be a tech. These are some of the simple things that are already working that we're looking to scale. And also for the purposes of this session, we tried to find out those who will be joining the meeting, and we realized most of us are intermediaries who work with the businesses. So we'd like to look at this session from a point of how can we effectively support agribusinesses, right? Using technical assistance, using financing, using scenario planning, and the other mechanisms that can support businesses and make them thrive. Just because the audience for this workshop, most of us are intermediaries or funders. So how can we innovate for these agribusinesses to thrive? And today, PFS, our experience is mostly with the middlemen, so the value addition people, because the value chain, as we know, is broad. We have logistics, we have primary production, we have processing, we have retail. So today we'll be looking at agribusiness from the perspective of value addition and processing. And we hope that will also add value to some of you who are here to learn both about primary production as well as the agribusiness value chain as a whole. So in order to help us with this session, we've categorized our learnings on innovation into 10. So we'll be sharing 10 key learnings that we are getting from working with clients and agribusinesses. And as I mentioned, our clients are mostly food processing companies, as well as some ecosystem partners that we work with. As everyone is aware, agribusiness in Africa and generally is quite vulnerable to disruptions. So disruptions from climate, from unrest, from disease, from exchange rates, from policies, and as we see even from Corona, in other climes during this COVID-19 crisis, it was a great opportunity for a lot of food businesses to thrive. But that wasn't the case across most of our settings and most of the countries that we work in. So as we know, we need to be creative and flexible in the business models and the suggestions that we give some of these agribusinesses to help them thrive. All right, please feel free to send your questions in and also your comments as I discuss some of the learnings that we've picked up from our clients and working in Africa. So I categorized the innovation into two. The first one is the structured innovation, which is more like the back end of what the companies do, which a lot of their consumers do not see. The first one we've seen the business models of some of our clients change. Some of them have moved from business to more business to consumers. And as much as possible, I'll try to use examples. So we have a client of ours who they're into spice production. And actually, one of the ways they innovated was to try to improve their B2B side of the business, because with Corona, there were a lot of disruptions at the port. So a lot of multinationals were looking for how to source locally. And this company identified this need and tried as much as possible to meet the need of most of these multinationals. That in itself is innovation, not because it's a new idea, but because it's an existing idea that they've applied, which wasn't there before, and is helping them thrive, or has helped them thrive during this crisis. As well, we have clients who have moved from the usual retail to more subscription-based sales, where as consumers, rather than just buying from retail, you subscribe to their products directly from the company, and then they supply you on a month-to-month basis. As I said earlier, this is not a new idea. However, it's an idea that has been working in other clients, which the company in Nigeria adopted. And we also have companies in other African countries that have adopted this. HVLC, what it means is high volume, low cost. Now we have some of our clients who were into luxury products, luxury snacks, snack products, and due to Corona, their sales wasn't as good as it should be. Therefore, they had to resort to producing products that were more high volume and low cost. As I said, not a new idea, but that was something they had to do to adapt to the present need as well as to the future need. As well, we've also seen my colleague in Ghana is also going to be sharing an experience from a client who also did supply chain integration. It's something that everyone has been stressing, that companies need to consider integrating locally, because any disruption can affect your business if you're relying mostly on importation. So supply chain integration, during this Corona crisis, we've seen clients who have been badly hit. For a country like Nigeria, exchange rate was affected, and we're currently in recession. Some of our clients have had to had a dip of profit as low as 20%, because typically most processing companies target a profit margin of about 40%. And if your profit margin reduces from 40% to as low as 20%, 15%, then something has to be done. And one way that they had to look for a way to thrive was to look for a way to source locally. So supply chain integration has really been key for a lot of the clients that we currently work with. The third point is embracing IT. As we know, technology, a lot of us have even had to work remotely due to the COVID-19 situation, and that has really helped. And as well, in agribusiness, that has been adopted. So we have before things like certification audits for those who want to access new markets. So the likes of Global Gap certification, FSSC certification. For those who are not familiar with these terms, these are certification audits to certify that your processes meet global standards, and most times is requested by your clients or your potential buyers. They request for these certification audits. And prior to now, a lot of these audits were done physically, where companies had to pay a lot more for the auditors to come in and stay for days and days and weeks. However, the advancement has been to consider remote audits, and that has been great because it has saved costs, and for both farmers as well as processors that want to access new markets, there's an opportunity for them to utilize IT to gain certification. Also, we've seen a lot of our companies go into e-commerce because, for example, when the lockdown happened and a lot of stores were closed, the next opportunity was for those who were able to directly supply to the supplier. So as intermediaries, or many of us who are intermediaries on this call, e-commerce is a huge space. Not because it's a new idea. I mean, we have the Amazons, we have the Alibabas, who have championed e-commerce. But it's still, we have the juniors, but I think for the agribusiness space, it's still an area that is worth exploring further. And we've seen a lot of our companies and clients move towards directly supplying consumers. Also, we've seen people embracing IT in stock keeping to help them make sure that they are staying on, on top of their game during any disruption. Another key structural innovation we've seen is with automation and lean production. Now, automation, what does that mean? For some of us who experienced the lockdown, or for all of us as we experienced the lockdown, before food companies were identified as key workers, is still, human resources is still a risk. So if you have a staff who became sick, that means he won't be able to come to work and function. And a lot of the food companies we work with, even though their revenue is from about 500,000 USD to up to 10 million USD, some of them were still utilizing semi-automated manual processes. And we've seen a lot of demand, huge demand for automation, because to stay ahead of the curve, to meet both the present need as well as the future needs, automation is the way to go. So we've been working with a lot of our clients on process engineering projects to see how we can help them automate their current processes. As well with lean production, what that means is trying to use, be more efficient, to utilize every single resource to have a higher output. So we've had clients even market or feed in their waste into another SKU. So into another, either they're selling it to other buyers or they're using it for their own process. Now, an example is a client of ours who does baked cookies. Now, usually their waste, they were selling it to feed companies, but during this Corona, and not just Corona, they found out that their profit margins were really going down from the waste because they were selling at very, very low prices to the animal feed companies. So we worked with them to see how to convert this waste into products. And that way they've remained lean. So they've tried to use the resources and the raw materials they had to continue to squeeze out value and make sure that there's very minimal waste. As I mentioned, that's not a new idea. It's just an idea that has worked in other aspects of manufacturing, which has now been applied to the food processing company as an agriculture. Another aspect we've seen is contract manufacturing and flexible manufacturing. So we have companies now, because of cost, they've tried to utilize other manufacturers to use. So versatile infrastructure, what that means is having, for example, one equipment that can do various products. So for example, if you have an extruder, your extruder should be able to make different kinds of cereals, or if you have a milling equipment that can do multiple products, that way you're able to not just produce your own product, but also adopt other companies that manufacture for you. So we have the likes of even the cereal partners worldwide. That is currently being done with global companies, and now we are seeing that being adopted even with small and medium enterprise companies. As well, we've seen what we call on-demand production. I'm throwing this out to all of us just because, as I mentioned, we are intermediaries and support the industry and support the clients. And for some of you who have businesses that are trying to keep their head above water and thrive during these challenging times, these are some of the options that you can share with them and support them to. So on-demand production, where rather than just produce and stock, you produce based on what your market say. So you produce only when there's a demand, rather than producing and pushing into the market. So we've seen that also play out with our clients. So the next 5, we also categorize innovation from an experience standpoint. So how have our companies and clients that we've worked with, how have they innovated with experience? So experience, as I mentioned, for structure, that's the back end. Experience is now the front end, how consumers experience their products. We've seen companies and we've worked with companies supporting them to reformulate their existing products. As I mentioned, for a country like Nigeria and other West African countries that are experiencing pressure with their foreign exchange, if you have clients that have ingredients that are imported, those ingredients were used to produce products that your clients are familiar with. Now, if you can't source these products anymore, you have to look for how to reformulate. And your consumers do not care whether you reformulate or not. What they want is they want a consistent product. So the product they used to pay for before, you have to make sure that whatever you do is the same product you churn out. Therefore, we've worked with a lot of the companies to reformulate their existing products. So for example, we have companies who use wheat flour. We've worked with them to integrate local cereals like sorghum and maize, to use that to displace wheat whilst achieving the same outcome. So that's a kind of innovation. And I think I need to stress that one of the challenges we found with some of the companies that we've worked with and with agribusinesses in general is that R&D is always at the back burner. It always comes from crisis. Rarely have we found any company that was very deliberate in having an R&D unit. So I think that's something that needs to encourage agribusinesses, be it from primary production as well as processing and logistics, is to continue to remain at the edge of technology, and not just technology, at the edge of your practice, to make sure you're formulating new ideas for your business. The next one is diversification of offerings, and that boils down to still the same R&D. So you're not reformulating existing products, you're looking at how can you diversify your offering. We have businesses who were into food production and now they've gone into coconut water, and we've also supported them to achieve that. We have Go Direct I mentioned earlier, e-commerce, social media channels. We've seen clients who have gone to Instagram, and bear in mind that a lot of the companies we work with are SMEs, but they've been able to achieve significant sales using e-commerce and social media. Also product bundling, as well as branding and messaging. And these are some of the things we've learned from the companies that we've worked with. And when we say branding and messaging, a lot of times food companies and agribusiness companies that work in West Africa, they think branding is just for multinationals. But we've really seen that become a bedrock of a lot of the companies that we work with, because you have to position yourself to compete with the multinationals. And part of how you're able to do this is through branding and messaging, because you have to brand yourself enough for people to pay before you market the product. And branding is promising people what you can give them. So as we work with some of the companies, we have to work with them on how to brand their message, how to brand their offering, how to communicate what they offer to the consumers. So these are some of the learnings. For opportunities, we still feel that although we are looking at processors, there are still opportunities for innovation for food security. Now, the first one we found is technical assistance for smart capital. Now, why is this important? All of the innovations that we've mentioned cannot be possible except there are funds, and the right kind of funds. Now, PFS, we've been very fortunate to work with several partners. So we've worked with Root Capital, Kate, who is one of the facilitators. We've worked with IMP, we've worked with grassroots business funds, other smart capital providers who pair their capital with technical assistance. And I think there's a huge opportunity in that space, because when you make recommendations to these clients or to these agribusinesses, they need to have the capital to implement. So as part of what we've done, we have worked with Root Capital and other partners to create stimulus funds, which we've provided to some of our clients as a way to help them thrive. And I think as part of this session, we want to inspire more intermediaries to support the businesses with funding as well as with technical assistance. As well, we've learned that some of the companies that were able to keep their head above water and thrive, they had scenario planning. Now, scenario planning is where you look at all the various scenarios that can happen, right? What is probable? I'm sure a lot of us never knew Corona would change the world the way it has done. So we need to support more agribusinesses to plan for the future, not just the present. So what's the worst that can happen? What if ShopRite, I'm using an example, what if ShopRite leaves the scene and there's no more ShopRite? How will you sell your produce? What if there's a policy that says you can't import so raw material? How are you going to thrive? How are you going to survive? What if there's a disease outbreak, right? And the products, for example, we have the crisis we had a crisis some years back with tomatoes, and now we have a crisis with the vegetable crop onions. That can happen in any value chain. It can happen with dairy, it can happen with cassava, it can happen with sorghum, with maize. So as a business, how do you plan to make sure you're on the top of your game? We need to also prioritize R&D and innovation. There's an opportunity for crowdfunding. I know Kiva was on the last workshop, but there's an opportunity to innovate through crowdfunding. Also insurance. We have a lot of good ideas coming up from an insurance perspective. And I do think that that's an opportunity for more innovation. So these are some of the learnings and the opportunities we've identified. At some point in the session, we'll leave it open for other members or other people or other members to share their learnings and share their experiences. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Christian to share his experience from a client perspective, a client that was able to innovate and thrive during COVID. So Christian, over to you. And after Christian, Kate will bring the perspective from an investor, as an investor rather. Christian.
Great. Hi, everyone. First and foremost, thank you so much, Vivian, for that insightful presentation. You've given us some food for thought, which I believe if we all put this into practice, it will reposition our businesses onto the path of sustainable growth. I would like to share some experience working with a client in Ghana and how they've taken advantage of technical assistance from Partners in Food Solutions to really build what I call internal resilience before COVID. And because of that, they've been able to weather the storms of COVID while others struggle and are still struggling, even in the same industry sector. This client is an agro-processor, basically processing convenience African foods and dishes for export to Europe and North America to serve Africans in diaspora. We started working with them 4 years ago. And at the time, that was when legislation in Europe and North America was more or less evolving. For example, the US introduced a legislation called FISMA, and they've given all countries that export to the US market up to 2018 to implement FISMA fully. Otherwise, they will have to stop their export to the US. And this clients took advantage of PFS technical assistance, and we, through our corporate partner volunteers, helped them to develop a world-class food quality and safety system that meets the requirement of US FDA and that of the European Food Safety Authority. And with that capacity, during the COVID time, because of the lockdown, and a lot of people in Europe and America, even including here, have to do home cooking, there was high demand for their products. So while companies in the same industry sector who refuse to comply or to take advantage of certification as a tool for market penetration were struggling to survive, they were even employing during COVID, and their output doubled. They also decided to look inward because looking at the geopolitics, one day they were asking themselves, what happens if Europe and America refuse to accept our product again? Does it mean that will be the end of our business? So they decided to start developing the local market. And that means innovation and adaptation. So in the past, they were producing packaged foods using tin cans or cans. But that makes the product quite expensive for the average person in Ghana or West Africa. So they decided to use innovation, and that is trying to use flexible packaging instead of cans. And that makes the product affordable for the local population. And interestingly, COVID came this year. And because of the lockdown, you all know that the open market where most of us go to buy our foodstuff was open, and because there is no social distancing or any of the safety protocols being followed in the open market, most of the middle class decided to prioritize the health of their wives and children over money. And they decided to go to the grocery shop or resort to retail shopping. And they realized that they have the same produce or products that they were buying in the open market. In the retail market, though quite expensive, but the quality and the safety is something they can guarantee. And they started buying their products in the retail shops. Just 2 months ago, I was talking to the CEO of the company, and he told me something very interesting. He said that, look, 2019, they decided to set overly ambitious target in terms of revenue for their company for 2020. Just by the close of the third quarter, they've exceeded that overly ambitious target by 40%. Just because the domestic market alone, the revenues more than doubled. And they were just happy. And as far as they are concerned, the last quarter is just going to be a bonus for the company because they've already exceeded their overly ambitious target in terms of revenue. Now, basically what it means is that as businesses, if we talk about resilience, and you all in this meeting will agree with me that the word resilience became so popular or common during this pandemic. In fact, resilience seems to have become the catchword of our times. Just this morning, I saw an article in a business newspaper, and they are talking about how to build resilient and sustainable banking sector in an era of COVID and post-COVID. So I tell my clients all the time that resilience is now the new normal for businesses. And when we say resilience, I look at it in two sentences. One, resilience means operating locally but thinking global. 2, resilience means embracing adaptation and innovation for business continuity. And thanks to Vivian, she has already explained and said a lot about adaptation and innovation. But thinking global while working in a local setting simply means that you should be interested in global trends and looking at what is happening in your industry sector, product sector, or your market. For example, if you are a business owner today and you are watching global trends, you should know that 2 months ago, the Global Consumer Index report reveals something interesting, and that is 45% of global consumers indicate that in view of this pandemic, they now prefer online shopping, even including their grocery purchases. That means that as a business, you should be thinking about e-commerce. You should have interactive, functional websites with a commerce front where people can buy and make payment for your product and services. In addition, you should be thinking of adding delivery services to your business where your customers or consumers can have their products and services delivered to them in the comfort of their homes. Because of COVID, people are now thinking about their health and safety first. So basically, there is an African adage, an African proverb that I want to share with you. And it says that the best time to plant a tree for livelihood is 20 years ago. The next best time to plant a tree is right now. So just because probably you were not prepared for COVID-19 does not mean that you shouldn't be building up your resilience now to get through the crisis. Or it will be a buffer for you against the next crisis that we don't have control over. So I would like to encourage you as agri-businesses to see the sector holding a lot of promise. For example, even during this crisis, a lot of businesses collapsed. But those of you in the agri-food sector were lucky because governments all over the world recognize that the food sector is an essential service sector. And for that matter, while others were restricted from going about their businesses, the agri sector alone was given the free range to go about their businesses because we all need food to eat, to live healthy lives. So the sector holds enormous opportunities. But like Vivian said, we need to embrace adaptation and innovation. And also, you need a reliable partner, like Partners in Food Solutions and Root Capital and others to help you weather the storms of crisis of this nature. I will pause here, and if anyone has a question, I will take them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christian. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please, if you have questions or you want to share your experience, please type in the chat box, and also at the end of the session, which is after Root Capital shares their own perspective, please feel free to unmute yourself and explain or share your experience. So I'll now pass it on to Kate. Kate will be sharing agribusiness innovation from an investor perspective, and I'm sure that will also be some insights for funders and capacity building intermediaries who are on the webinar today. Kate, over to you.
Great, thank you, Vivian, and thank you, Christian, for inviting me to share the Zoom room with you today. I'll start just by giving a short overview of Root Capital for those that aren't familiar. Root Capital is an impact investor that deploys both credit, mostly working capital debt, and capacity building services to agricultural businesses. And you can see here the geographies in which we work across East and West Africa, Latin America, and also Indonesia. We were founded about 20 years ago, and since that time, we've deployed $1.5 billion in financing to these businesses, purchasing from over 1.5 million farmers. And we've also provided customized capacity building services, primarily around financial management, to 1,500 businesses, both those in our portfolio and pipeline businesses. And we've been partnering with PFS really starting in Ghana about 5 years ago. And it's a pleasure always to share the stage with you all. So if you can go to the next slide, please, Vivian. I'll really focus my remarks today around innovation in the face of COVID-19, but I'm very happy to take questions and discuss innovation more broadly during the Q&A. So a little bit of context on what COVID-19 has meant for us as Root Capital and also our clients, the agricultural businesses that we work with. We've always known that small and growing agricultural businesses are income generators, engines of impact for rural communities, if you will. It's really the heart of why we do what we do at Root Capital. And in the context of the pandemic, that has proven more than true. We've seen that our clients really can be a lifeline, offering employment, income, essential services that, if designed appropriately, can both reduce the risk of the virus spreading as well as alleviate some of the economic impacts of the virus. So in short, our clients can play a really important role in the frontline response to the virus, especially in rural communities, with the right support. And so the question then becomes, what is the right support? If you go to the next slide, please, Vivian. In the early days of the pandemic, one of our most important goals was first to understand, what are our clients going through? What are the challenges they're facing? And so in April, we surveyed about half of our clients around the globe. And we found that at the time, rather surprisingly to us, only 20% of our clients were actually experiencing lower market demand. That number did go up to about 40% by the time we did the next survey in July. And yet, while demand was not necessarily affected, and in some cases, demand for certain products were actually growing, almost all of our businesses were struggling with how to adapt to the realities of lockdowns and border closures and new employee safety regulations, and how do they adapt their business to COVID, basically. And so if you go to the next slide, Vivian. And basically, we took from this that as Root Capital, we needed to keep doing what we do best. We need to keep offering working capital financing so that our clients have the money that they need, the cash, to pay farmers on time during the harvest season and meet that sustained demand for their products. And we also needed to continue providing customized capacity building services on core business management skills such as scenario planning, as Vivian mentioned, cash flow management, et cetera, to keep businesses alive. And so we adapted those core services to the new reality. For example, transitioning those capacity building services remotely. And of course, we also identified areas where we needed to pivot and meet our clients' very crisis-specific needs. For many of our clients, this crisis has meant that they incur additional costs on top of already thin margins or delays in getting their products to market. And so we built on an existing small grants program, actually. We are an investor, but we have provided some very limited grants in the past. And we scaled up this program 5 to 10x to respond to the COVID-related needs of our clients, whether it was around buying soap or food and seeds or enabling paid sick leave for employees. So if you go to the next slide, please. So again, I'll kind of share an example from our portfolio as well, also from Ghana. One of our processor clients in Ghana who receives both credit and capacity building services from Root Capital and also technical assistance from PFS sources cassava and palm fruit from over 1,000 farmers distributed across the country, and they employ about 50 staff and processing workers. And so this business, they first felt the impacts of COVID-19 when they were starting to have difficulty in supplying raw materials from their suppliers. And so they went out and they said, okay, well, what is the issue here really? And they found that with movement restrictions and the collapse of the informal economy, farmers were lacking the cash that they needed to buy inputs for the farm. And after identifying this root cause, our client developed and began offering financing to those farmers to purchase inputs and help secure their supply and avoid delays in production. This was one additional cost to the business, and there were many, many others. So the business was also providing face masks and other PPE to staff. They began providing transportation and food to staff so as to minimize the risk that staff would contract COVID when they were taking public transportation or going out during their lunch breaks to buy food. And while the business was, at the beginning of the pandemic, able to fund these additional services on their own, we did find that as the pandemic wore on, that kind of buffer and margin quickly wore out. And so earlier this month, they did qualify for a small grant in order to fund some of these costs. In addition, as Christian was mentioning, we did see a lot of our clients maybe without reduced demand, but with definitely shifted demand. So this business was selling primarily into the European market for the diaspora, and then they moved a lot of their focus in terms of market more locally. And as a lender, we had to adapt with them because typically we finance export contracts and use that as a form of security for our loans. And without that, with more of the local sales, we also had to adapt the structure of the financing that we provided to them. So what can we draw from this example? I really find that crises such as this one reduce us all to our core values and mission. And for the businesses that we work with, they know that their success is very dependent upon the health and the success of the farmers and employees that they work with. And we know as Root Capital that our success is also based on that of our clients. So we must first start by understanding what is happening in the ecosystem. And then we must also be willing to test new services and support based on the new needs that are developing. Whether it's this agro-processor offering financing to farmers, which is really a very separate kind of business line and frame of mind, or whether it's Root Capital offering small grants, whereas typically we offer debt financing, these small innovations can play a really big role in our collective continued success and existence. And I do really see that agribusinesses have a real need for subsidy for grants, by the way, right now. So I think maybe to go back to Vivian's initial question, I define innovation as creating value in new and different ways for your partners and stakeholders. And I do think that COVID-19 is forcing all of us, or maybe giving us the opportunity, if you want to be more optimistic, to innovate in ways that will not disappear once we're through it. Definitely will continue. And so, yeah, with that, let me hand it back to Vivian and we'll open it up for Q&A.
Okay, thank you so much, Kate. Thank you so much for sharing that. And to my colleague, Christian, thank you. So we'll move to the Q&A session, just to accommodate any questions, but also we have some questions that we'll need to get your feedback on. So what impact has COVID had on your agribusiness or an agribusiness you support or consult for or fund? And how has this impact spurred innovation? Taking us back to the definition of innovation, how have they adapted to the present needs and to the future needs? And what practices have worked well or has not worked well? So please, you can, if you have a question, you can, or a comment, you can unmute yourself and share, or you can send it on the chat box. As I said, we're here to share, but we're also here to learn from some of you. Okay, so we have a question from earlier that says, I would like to learn how are innovators being made investment ready? What are the anchors for scaling today? That's a very interesting question. And I think Kate, who is an investor, will be in the best position to answer this question. So Kate, the question is, how are innovators being made investor ready? And what are the anchors for scaling today?
Great, thank you. So generally, as I was kind of saying, I think any innovation really needs to meet a true market need. I do think that there's a lot of hype and a lot of conversation around certain innovations that will change the world, and we haven't quite seen that they necessarily are really geared towards a market need that exists today. And so I think that is kind of the first bar to meet for any innovation is really the market need piece. And then, of course, as an investor, whether it's an agribusiness or something else, we want to see that there's a very clear business plan and a team in place that's able to execute and deliver. Those are kind of the bare requirements, I would say.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Kate. And I think to add to that as well, how are innovators being made investment ready? Is you have to sort of prove your concept and prove it over and over again, and before you can, before your innovation will be investment ready, right? Innovations are good, but also they have to be tested. And you have to prove that it works before you can get investment and scale. So that's what I'll add to that. We also have a great question from Nelson. He says, what have been the biggest challenges for clients to monitor and maintain the health and well-being of the employees, vendors, and suppliers? How have you encouraged them to consider the issues long-term? I'll take a jab at this question. The truth is for every business, it has to make business sense, and they don't want their staff not to come to work. So in order to encourage them, it's a clear business case of if you don't take care of your staff, they're not going to come to work. And if you don't have an automated process, you're still going to pay salaries and they still will not come to work. So, and also we've also encouraged them in the beginning of the crisis. We sent them a lot of learning materials. We provided them a lot of support. And I think that added to, that encouraged them and helped them with the tools to implement safety measures. We have clients who had to split 50 to 2 or 3. So instead of having all their staff come to work at a given point in time, they had to split the shifts. We have a client who some of their staff will come for 2 weeks and then go home, and another set will come in and work for another 2 weeks. So that's the way they structured it. Christian, I don't know if you want to add to this, or if anyone, if you have anything to add, Christian.
Yes, thank you, Vivian. I think you've said it all, but I'll add that yes, for us as an organization with our partners like Root Capital, we realize that yes, like Vivian said, it must make business sense. The biggest challenge for them has been how to keep their cash flow going and at the same time maintaining their workforce in terms of paying salary and also helping them to keep themselves safe. So we came in with our resiliency grants, basically to help them subsidize payroll and also to procure some of the safety protocol, PPEs, and the rest. And we also try to refer them because we cannot give all of them resiliency grants. Some didn't get it, but we refer them to other donor institutions like the Master Fund Foundation that partners some governments. For example, in Ghana, the MasterCard Foundation partnered the National Board for Small Scale Industries to provide some kind of stimulus package for these businesses. And we serve as intermediaries to refer them to these institutions for support.
Thank you so much, Christian. So Nelson, I don't know if that answers your question, but these are some of the things we did to encourage and incentivize our clients to implement safety measures for their staff. In the short time that we have, we want this to be, well, we also want to learn from you. So if you've worked in any agribusiness and, you know, COVID-19 has impacted them both positively or negatively, please, you can unmute yourself and share. And we also want to learn other innovations that we probably have not identified here, especially given the definition and the confines of the definition of innovation for this workshop. So please, if you feel free to share. And if we don't have any, I would then have to turn back to Joshua. So do we have any takers who want to share? All right, then. Thank you so much, everyone, for learning with us and listening to us share what we've learned from working with several several clients and several food processors who work in the agribusiness space. We hope that this has been a very enriching webinar for you, and we look forward to connecting in the future. So over to you, Joshua.
All right, thoughts before we close this session.
Yeah, so just to say thank you to everyone for joining this session. It's really great for us to have shared some of our learnings, and we hope this will inspire more people to learn, support the companies, and just be informed about how we can use what is existing to make sure that our companies and agribusinesses thrive. So it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much for that. And in the chat, I could see that NECA dropped like a link to the study they are doing at Dalberg. So if you have a thought, please look through it and you can give me feedback through the email she has provided. And finally, from Christian, do you have a final thought before we close this session? All right. Looks like Christian is not on the call. All right. So we really appreciate everyone. Thank you for joining all our series for this year. We have one more to go this year, and we're going to be sending you email about the sessions. We've had sessions around fundraising using our crowdfunding platform with Kiva, which we heard last week. It's available on our platform. We've had sessions with Acumen on innovative deal structuring. We've had with 60 decibels on import measurement using the the lane data model, and of course we've had several other sessions. So we want to appreciate our Foundation for supporting this interesting work, and of course we want to say a big thank you to Partners in Food Solutions for taking the time, and all through the time we are actually having several calls to put this together. We really want to appreciate you, and of course Root Capital, thank you, Kate. We thank you for joining us today, and to Susan, thank you for also joining today. Till we see you again, please look out for email from Confidence, and you can always reach back to us for feedback. Vivian has provided